Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Unexplained and Unsolved podcast. I'd like to say welcome back to my co-host, Dakota, who is able to make it into this episode. With that being said, I'd like to say, how are you doing today, Dakota?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good, and I'm happy to have you back on the show. So this is going to be our final episode of the Skinwalker series. We kind of just wanted to tie it off a little bit, and the way we wanted to tie it off is just by talking about the Skinwalker Ranch, because I know we mentioned it in the second episode of the series. And we also want to tell our personal stories with possible Skinwalker interactions. And also, we have another friend of the show's story that was sent in like a few days ago, so we were going to tell that as well. Now, before we start off this episode, I just want to say, please make sure you like and subscribe if you already aren't subscribed. And if you are subscribed, please like and comment on the video. It's a big help to the channel and it lets us know how we're doing, especially when you guys comment and give us feedback about the video. It's really nice to see some interaction in the community, and we always just really like to talk with you guys. So without any further ado, let's get into the episode. So I'm going to be talking about the Skinwalker Ranch. Well, we're both going to be talking about the Skinwalker Ranch, but I'm going to be talking about the show itself. And then Dakota is going to be reading what is just like a story about the family.
Yeah, it's from the book called The Utah UFO Display.
So from what I know about the story is that it's actually a kind of like a second-hand story. Isn't like the brother of the family who owned the ranch for like 30 years or something like that, or 60 years, I think.
I believe so. He's like interviewing the Myers, the people who had the ranch and didn't really have much experience with like any paranormal stuff, but the people who didn't get the ranch after them, which their names is
I believe it was
Shermans.
The Shermans.
The Shermans. They're the ones who had like all the Skinwalker and UFO sightings and all the crazy stuff.
So we'll get to that later in the episode, but for now we're just going to talk about the actual show itself. So Skinwalker Ranch, like we said before, we think it's maybe a grift, and there's kind of some reasoning behind that. I'm going to explain that. So for starters, it's a really popular show. They've made books, movies, TV shows about it. It's like a really high rating on TV. Like it does really, really good numbers. So that's like the main reason why they think that it's a grift, or like from what we've seen, is because they just kind of made it like really appealing to like not only the paranormal audience, but also I guess just like average TV viewers, you know? And so now that they've made it like more accessible to, I guess, the public and people who weren't really into the culture itself, Skinwalkers have kind of became a kind of like a pop culture phenomenon. So the ranch was owned by the Meyer family from 1930s to 1994. It was then bought by Robert Bigelow, who is a billionaire aerospace exec, and he's like your average UFO enjoyer. So he wanted to study the ranch after the Shermans sold it to him. And the interesting about the Shermans is they were like super, like I guess like prevalent, like super like well known like cattle people. Like they like raise cattle, and they were just like known for that kind of stuff. And the guy, I think his name is Terry Sherman, he was like known for just like always making money. Like he was always in his bag, always, you know, just like making money. He never like lost money. And the interesting about the whole story behind like that family was he actually ended up selling the ranch for a loss. I think they sold it for like maybe $200,000, I think is what they said, right? And so that was like very unlike him, I guess, from like what people knew about him. And so he sold it to the Robert Bigelow guy, and the Robert Bigelow guy is like this like super rich guy. And so he had this institute called the National Institute for Discovery Science. And so, like, they studied the land, looked for any paranormal phenomena. And, like I said, he's just, like, a dude. Like, he's a really rich dude who happens to be into that kind of stuff. So he had, like, all the funds to, I guess, like, really, like, look into it. And it was also, like, government funded. But we don't really have any much insight on it because it was actually classified. And so once they were done studying the land, they then sold the whole entire ranch to this like show company called Adamantium Real Estate. And then after they sold it to them, they actually trademarked the name Skinwalker Ranch. So that's kind of like where people in the community kind of people in the community feel like it's a grift, because, you know, these people, these show producers come in here, and then, you know, they buy the land, buy all the rights to it. They even like trademark the name. So it just kind of seems like right off the bat that they're trying to make money on it.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add to that, or like what you think about it?
Yeah, it's like trademarking the name. It's basically just like showing that they don't want anyone else using the name, so they're just using it for like a big cash grab. So it's pretty apparent that they're just in it for the money.
And then so after that, they actually turned the Skinwalker Ranch area into somewhat of a reality show. And from what me and Dakota like found out about the show is that it kind of gives off like Finding Bigfoot vibes. I don't know what channel is that on, like Discovery or something like that, or History?
Yeah, it's like Discovery something. It's just like one of those shows where it seems like obviously just like scripted, and
yeah.
it's kind of just like funny to watch.
Yeah, it is really funny to watch, especially because it's like hillbillies just running around like screaming and everything.
Yeah, like old dudes with like beards running around like, he's over there.
Yeah, and then like they like cut over to like where he's pointing at and there's like nothing there. It'll be like freaking like bushes moving around and stuff. So that's like pretty much what we kind of got from it, like whenever we watched like the trailer for the show. And then also we watched like a few episodes about the show. So it kind of just seems like it's like super scripted, and it just, I don't really know what else to really say about it. It seems fake kind of. So the owner of this Adamantium real estate company is this guy named Brandon Fugel, or Fugel. And he's also into the paranormal. And so he's just pretty much another rich guy who's into it. And, you know, like I said, he just has like all the funds to, I guess, like put into the research as well. So it just kind of seems like it's like being passed around by like these super rich guys that are hopefully not into it for just the money. Like they actually like want to figure out, you know, what's really going on there. And so the Brandon Fugel guy, he seems like pretty sincere about the whole thing, because he was even quoted for saying, "What we are witnessing could be evidence that we live in a multi-dimensional universe, that we are not alone, that we may be interacting with other entities and other intelligence." So what do you think about this whole thing, Dakota? Do you think he's pretty sincere about it, or do you think he's just like one of these rich guys that just want to make some money off of it?
I mean, I hope that he's like into like find out like what's really happening there, but just the way how it's shown with him, it just seems like he's just in it for the money, really.
Yeah. And that's like the other like downside to it, is that if he is just in it for the money, then that's gonna suck for like paranormal community, because, you know, we actually believe in this kind of stuff, and for someone to just, you know, come in here and, you know, just kind of make money off of us, which is literally a grift. Like that's like the exact definition of a grift. For someone just to come in here and make money off of us and just be like, oh yeah, you know, like I'm really into this stuff, but then later to find out that he was just in it for the money would really be disappointing, because I want to believe in like his research and everything, because it seems pretty, I guess, like legit that it's a whole like research organization and everything. I don't know, I kind of hope that it's real. But the thing that's kind of sketchy is that they made a whole TV show about it. I mean, it could just be like them trying to document it and like showing everybody, but then that's why like we're kind of on the fence about it, because it could also just be them trying to make money. So what do you think about like that?
Yeah, it's they could be there to like document what's happening, but also like with the trademarking the name Skinwalker Ranch, it just really makes it seem like
Sketchy.
Yeah, like they just don't want anyone else using it because they want to get all the money and profits off of it.
Right. The thing that makes me want to believe it is because the Ute tribe were the people that actually inhabited the land that the ranch was on, and like we said in our past other episodes, was that the Ute and the Navajo were like pretty much the tribes that were really talking about the Skinwalkers. So that's kind of what gives it like more of a credible sense to it, because, you know, they inhabited the land, they came up with the story, it's been around for, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years. So I just hope that like these super rich guys aren't just coming in here and just like trying to make money off these people. Which in the one episode that we watched about it, they were talking about like trying to get more information about the Native American tribes that are still like in the area. And I know you said this already, Dakota, but they still like don't talk about this like at all. Like they won't even mention like a single thing about Skinwalkers, just because they believe, like we said in previous episodes, that once you like talk about them, they're pretty much like gonna come for you, you know?
Yeah, it's like you mention anything about like the meaning of the name or the name Skinwalker, anything that relates to them, they believe is just bad omen. You say it, a Skinwalker will be after you, it just curses you.
So I feel like hearing from those people who have been around for, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years gives it more of a credible sense than it would to be just for someone I guess like just from getting it or hearing the stories from someone who like bought the land for like millions of dollars and like has owned it for like, you know, like maybe like a handful of years, but they're also making a TV show about it. So now going back to what we talked about before about the families that owned the land, the whole weird thing is, like I said, there's people that have owned it for 60 years and didn't see a single thing. I think I can't remember if I already said this or not, but I think they owned it from like 1930s to like 1990 something, 94, I think.
Yeah, like early 1930s to 1994, and then...
So yeah, like after they owned it, they then sold it to the cattle people who owned it for like 3 years, and then, you know, they were having all these strange sightings, and the family just has a lot of different accounts of like what happened. There's like an account where the guy's dogs were like chasing this like blue orb into a field, and he didn't see him for like the rest of the night, and then he goes out the next morning just to find like, I think it was like 2 patches of grass dead, and there was like some
piles of like ashes, like
yeah,
right there.
Yeah, they said it was like some like black like kind of like suit or like something like that left, so pretty much the dogs were like vaporized, you know,
just like vaporized, disintegrated.
Yeah, so like there's that. There's also like the whole thing with like the cattle mutilations and everything. So I don't know, like that's just like what's kind of weird is it's like they, you know, we have the Native American people that had stories about it, have stories about the land and everything. Then we have people who own the land for 60 years, didn't see anything. And then we also have, you know, like this family that came in, they were like just getting messed with and everything, which I'm kind of thinking it might be like a Scooby-Doo type of thing. I know I said that before when we were doing research, but who knows, like it could have just been like maybe the rich people like trying to get the land off of them, so they're like, you know, let's mess with these people, and, you know, let's try to, I guess, pull a mystery on them, freaking, you know.
Like, you see that, it's like, they see these people having these weird experiments, so they think, hey, I could take advantage of this for a huge cash grab, so they continue to scare them with all this stuff, and so that they can then get the land and make their own TV shows and big cash grabs. And
like that's like the whole thing is like the family sold it for $200,000, and then the guy owned it for a few years, and then he turned around and sold it for like $1 million something. So that's definitely like a big profit.
Yeah.
So now I'm gonna pass it on to Dakota. He has a actual interview between, what's the guy's name, the author, Frank B. Salisbury, and the brother of the man who actually owned the ranch for like 60 years. So he's gonna read this off to you.
Okay, so this is from the book The Utah UFO Display. By an amazing coincidence, I found myself in contact with Myers. It turned out that Myers only lived a few blocks from me, and after talking with him on the phone, I recorded my first interview with him on September 3rd, 2009. In our first telephone conversation, Myers cleared up a few things and told me the location of the ranch. After the interview, there were follow-up visits as we got to know each other. Here's a summary of the ranch's history from our interviews. Garth's brother and sister-in-law, Kenneth John Myers and Edith Child, had purchased the ranch around 1933, not in the 1950s. Garth, who was 88 years old at the time of my interview, was much younger than his brother. He had actually worked on the ranch for 3 summers as a teenager. Kenneth and Edith began with about 160 acres and accumulated other parcels until they had formed the 480-acre ranch. Living in quite primitive conditions at first, but improving things through the years. They had one child who died in infancy before they moved to the ranch. There were no other children. Kenneth died in 1987 at the age of 86, but his widow continued to live on the ranch for 5 years until she was taken to a rest home. For 2 years, the ranch was vacant, but always leased out to other ranchers to farm and run cattle, even before Kenneth died. Then the ranch, when Edith died on March 3rd, 1994, the ranch reverted to Garth Myers and his sisters, Helen M. Baxter and Lepriel Paulson. Less than 3 months later, Garth, as executor of the Kenneth and Edith Myers estate, negotiated sale of the ranch to the Witness family, the Shermans. But after nearly 2 years, they ran into difficulties, losing several prize cattle as recorded in Skinwalker. This was when Junior Hicks first visited the ranch. Witnessing some of the cattle mutilations and other phenomenon, Junior had not visited the ranch when it belonged to the Myers. But by then, the UFO rumors were circulating wildly, especially after 2 articles about the ranch in the Desert News. Along came Bob Bigelow, and the ranch was sold to him. All these noises in the back are from people setting off fireworks. It was like, I said Bob Bigelow, and it was just like Just silence. Alright, so let me get back into the article. What about the important statement that the greatest concentration of high strangeness has always taken place at what became the Skinwalker 480-acre ranch? Garth Myers ferociously denies it. Here are the important parts of the interview that I recorded.
Okay, so now I'm going to read the interaction between Garth and Frank. So Garth says, "See, this is the story that Frank Sherman created, but it's not the right story." So then Frank says, "That's why I'm here to talk to you, because you are somebody who knows." Garth then says, "The next thing I knew, I get this information that they're UFOs, and he was scared to death. And this man in Las Vegas phoned in and was going to buy it. All I know is about a month or 6 weeks after he bought it, Bigelow called me and wondered why we hadn't told anybody about the UFOs. I told him they didn't get there until the witness got there. He said UFOs were coming there and you had dogs keeping the people away. And I said they had at most were 2 dogs. And the last time my sister-in-law lived there for 5 years with a 3-legged dog, and part of the time with no dog at all, and there were no UFOs. He said, "Oh, you're not telling me the truth." I said, "If you don't believe it, I guess we don't need to talk anymore," and that was about it. So after about 6 months, I got another call from somebody, and they kind of told me the same story. The last caller was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Don't know who. He said he wanted to have lunch with me. I said, on one condition, that you'll show me the ranch. He said, "Can't do it." I said, "Okay, I guess no lunch." That's the last I've heard. You probably have read the articles in the discreet news. At this point, I told him about the scientific interest in UFOs, that I was a professor at emeritus at Utah State University, and a bit more of my history. I told him that I don't believe in UFOs. I investigate UFOs. I told him that I was working on the Utah UFO display, originally published in 1974. I said I must have a chapter on the ranch, so that makes this interview very valuable to me, because I can say there is another side to it that isn't known. Garth replied, "My brother had 480 acres. If I remember, my brother bought that ranch in about 1933. Just a little house, an outdoor privy, and no water, or electricity, or even a telephone. They had to haul water from Fort Dutchness. They were essentially hermits. They only established relationship with 2 people in Randlet, but other than that, they had no communications with the neighbors. Hard worker, honest, hard man to work for. I worked for him for a while." Garth Myers practiced his MD in pediatric neurology. He spent much of his career at the LDS Primary Children's Hospital, but also worked for the State Department of Health. In his discussions with me, it became clear that, like most educated people with a scientific background and no real knowledge of the extent and evidence of the UFO accounts, Garth simply rejects any idea that there might be some reality to the UFO phenomenon. I told him a few Utah Bassin stories, but he said that's fine, as long as you know they're just stories. This being the case, in all honesty, we must consider the possibility that Kenneth and Edith Myers were experiencing UFO visits on their ranch, but knowing that their brother was such a skeptic, they decided not to share this information with him. Remember, however, that he was there himself as a teenager for 3 summers without seeing any UFOs. Yes, that was long ago, but Skinwalker's statement says that UFO activity goes back even to the time of the Native Americans. In a telephone conversation on September 5th, 2009, sadly not recorded, I asked him if it were possible that his brother and sister-in-law didn't tell him about UFO activity that they were experiencing. He said he was very close to his brother in spite of the age difference, knowing every detail of their lives. After his brother died, he kept in very close touch with his sister-in-law, many visits and close emotional ties, as he worried about her living there alone. He feels totally confident that his brother and sister-in-law would have told him about any strange activity, especially under the circumstances. Later, I called Garth Myers from the Uintah Basin to ask him a few more questions. First is the matter of the locks inside and outside the house. When the witness bought it, Garth had said that it simply was not true. When he visited the ranch, it took 1 key to enter the home, and if the key didn't work, a sharp kick in the door would let him in. There was no profusion of locks. The witness, however, told me that there were small sliding locks on cupboards inside. Second is the matter of no digging being allowed on the ranch. The rumor might have been fortified by Charles Wynn, who said he was digging something for Kenneth Myers with his backhoe, when Kenneth told him for sure not to dig in a certain area that doesn't sound very sinister. If I owned a ranch, I might not want someone with a backhoe to dig in a certain place, so what, Garth said. The only stipulation in the real estate contract was that the previous owners retained the oil rights to the property. Since oil has become important in the basin, such as stipulation is common when a ranch is sold, so the real estate contract stipulated that if the new owners dug for oil, they must notify the previous owners. Further, as noted in my interview with Garth, he denied that his brother had ever used large guard dogs. The widow, Edith, had only the one 3-legged dog, and he died a couple years before Edith left the ranch for the rest home. So that article was a lot to take in. It was really interesting, and it just kind of shows that there's just like a lot of contradictions between all the different stories. You know, you got one side saying that there is possible paranormal and extraterrestrial, I guess, activity, and then you also have another side saying that, you know, we've lived here for so long, we never seen anything, so they kind of just write that off.
Yeah, there's like two sides that you have to think about. There's the side that lived there for like so many years, like way longer, and they never witnessed any weird activity. And you got the side where they didn't live there like super long, but they just had all these weird things going on, like shooting a wolf, and like it does nothing to it, like a gigantic wolf, and just all sorts of weird activity, UFOs, lights in the tree line, just all sorts of weird paranormal stuff for them. And then decide that just like nothing happened.
Yeah, so it's like, it's kind of hard to believe, really, like who to believe. I guess it really just depends on like what kind of side you're leaning towards, like either if you're a skeptic that doesn't believe in it, or if you're someone like us who does believe in it. So, you know, there's pretty much just like two sides to the argument. Like it's either you don't believe it or you do, but it's really just based off like your opinion, really.
Yeah, it's hard to decide because the side where they say like nothing weird happened is more believable, but the way how the people talk about like the weird interactions, there's no like weird, like I don't know, things that just don't sound like right, you know. I mean, well, none of it sounds right because it's just like weird stuff, but
yeah,
it's like it doesn't sound like someone will just like move in and just like make up. It sounds very like the way how they explain it is so deep in detail, it just doesn't sound fake.
Yeah, and like another thing too is that what the brother, what's his name, Garth, right?
Yeah, Garth.
The stuff that Garth is saying is that it seems like the people who moved in after, like him and his brother and his wife, it sounds like they like really fabricated like the whole thing. Like they're just like adding more stuff to the story, or like to like the lore about like the actual ranch, which it could just be like a seemingly like regular ranch, but like, you know, these people are trying to make money off of it, so they're gonna be like, oh yeah, like this is spooky, all this and that, like, oh, there's like, you know, the house is all locked up, there's like scary stories about it, like the ranch owners were kind of, you know, scary, or just like, I guess, ominous people. So I mean, like I said, it's really hard to believe because it's like there's the people who actually live there and like their whole family account and everything, and then you have these people who, you know, just moved in and they're just like trying to make money off of it, you know.
Yeah, or like the owners that had never seen anything with it, the Myers, they who knows, they could be like trying to cover it up. Maybe they're like on like the side of like Skinwalkers or whatever, and they're just like trying to cover it up and make it seem like nothing happened, and then these people move in and then they talk about it. Or it could just be like one big scripted build up to get a bunch of money, you know, these people, casual people living on a perfectly fine farm, and then other people move in, and then they make up all this stuff to happen just to build up into a TV show and start making all this money off of it.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty much all we really got to say about Skinwalker Ranch. Before we end off this episode, though, I think we want to tell our stories, right? Do you still want to do that?
Yeah, and your friend's story.
Yeah, so before this episode ends, we're going to tell our own story. So we'll, I'll put a description down below to, like, let you know, like, where we talk about Skinwalker Ranch, then when we talk about our own stories, just because I can already tell before I even edit this video that it's going to be a really long video, possibly like 30 to 40 minutes long. So like I'll chop it up for you guys so that way you can skip through some parts if you don't want to hear about Skinwalker Ranch, or if you just want to hear our stories, that way you can do that. So if you know me personally or you just follow me on Snapchat, you know that I've been posting a lot about the channel, also on my Instagram. So after I posted stuff about the channel, I had a friend, like kind of like a childhood friend, reach out to me and told me his story about pretty much an experience that him and his girlfriend had. So he said, we were driving on back roads in Dover. We were about to go up a hill where we would stargaze. I saw something across the road on the way up. I just put it off as an animal. While we were sitting there, a light appeared in the distance. We thought it was a plane, but it was far too low. There weren't any blinking lights on it either. Then it suddenly disappeared. I turned on the car and I floated out of there. At this point, I didn't know what a skinwalker was, When she showed me a picture of one, I knew that's what I had seen across the road. This thing was too close to the ground to have been a deer and too long to have been a raccoon. With the light disappearing and a possible skinwalker scaring across the road, it really freaked us out. The light honestly freaks me out more than the skinwalker. It was too big of a light to have been a drone. This was also in the middle of nowhere. We should have recorded it. So now before I go any further, I just want to say thank you to David for sharing the story with us. It was actually a pretty freaky story. I mean, just to think that he saw like a possible skinwalker and also a light, because, you know, we've talked about it like earlier in this video that people do see like orbs and stuff of like light that are possible skinwalkers as well. Because, you know, people kind of say that they could be extraterrestrial, and also like in paranormal, I guess, like activity, it seems like there's always stuff with orbs. So like, what do you think about the whole thing, Dakota?
Yeah, it sounds believable too, because he said he like didn't know anything about skinwalkers, and the way how he explains like seeing an orb, especially with a very disformed and disshaped animal,
Yeah,
it seems like believable.
yeah. And then also because like he said it couldn't be a drone because it was like super low to the ground. I don't think that someone would just be like flying a drone in the middle of nowhere. So,
Yeah.
That's really weird. So now we're gonna move on to my story. So with my experience with a possible skinwalker was, so this morning I got up really early to go to work. It was around maybe 4 o'clock in the morning. So I had my car parked in front of my house in the street. And so as I was walking to my car, I seen that there was a deer standing in the middle of the road. And so where I live, I don't really live near any like wood areas, or at least like the areas that I do live by, they're not really that dense to where like wildlife such as like deer and stuff, like maybe like, you know, like raccoons and squirrels can live in there, but we normally don't see deer around there. So it was really weird, first off, just like seeing a deer in the area. And so, you know, there was this deer in the middle of the street just like standing there staring at me, and I didn't notice it until like after I got like maybe to like the end of my driveway. And so the deer just like stared at me, and so like I kind of got creeped out about it because the deer was like really weird looking. So it was by itself for starters, which usually when you do see a deer, it's with like, you know, maybe like what, like 3 or 4 other deers. Sometimes they come in packs of 2, but anyways, like it was by itself. It was a doe, and it had like this like really like long pointy tail, and it just seemed like it was like a lot longer than what deer usually have like as tails. It also had a really like one really sharp pointy ear, and then the other ear was, it could have been cut off, but like it was like a short ear, almost like it was like rounded, and it just, I don't know, it just looked like disfigured. So it was just kind of weird because, you know, me and Dakota, this was like around the time me and Dakota were first talking about our like starting the podcast, and so it was pretty weird to like just see something, like see an animal this strange after we were talking about like skinwalkers. And then to later do research saying that like whenever you do talk about skinwalkers, they pretty much are attracted to you after that. And so, you know, after I got to the car, it just walked away. So at least I didn't get like murked by this thing or anything. Yeah. But I don't know, it's just like a really weird experience. So now Dakota's going to tell his story about his possible skinwalker experience.
All right, so I'd say the first one, I don't know, it's like, it was from a long time ago. I was maybe 5 years old, so I don't remember it too well, but it's when I lived in this house, like middle of nowhere. It was just like, well, not middle of nowhere, it was in Valley View. It seems like a place that you would definitely see skinwalkers at. It's just like very like a lot of hills all over the place, grass, fields like everywhere. We lived there for a short amount of time, but it was like just our house, no other houses around it. And I used to sneak out my window like very late at night, not very late at night, maybe early in the morning, like whenever everyone was sleeping, I would just like sneak out the window, and right across the street there was this big like open field, and I would go in there. It was like a field with like super tall like grass, like really tall grass. We had like sleeping bags and stuff out there to just like hang out there and stuff, like me and my brothers and sisters. So I would like sneak out, play with like my toy guns and like my action figures and stuff out there. And this one day I was playing, right, I just hear this really scary noise. I can't remember exactly like what it was, but it was like a very like weird noise. I hear like bottle rockets in the background right now, but it was like this weird noise. I don't know how to explain it. It was like really like screechy, high pitched, not like the bottle rockets outside, but it was like, I don't know, it was scary though.
It's coming for you, Bubba.
Yeah, so that's really about all that happened. Well, no, I went like charging inside, like screaming because I was so scared. The next one takes place in 2020, where now I live in Old Brooklyn. It's more like closer to downtown Cleveland. Which also, old Brooklyn has a lot of like very paranormal like things that just go on, and there's a lot of like abandoned houses and just weird things that happen around there a lot, just like weird people. And one thing that I think goes on with this is this one old lady that's always walking around, and she is scary, kind of.
Like a witch or something?
Yeah, she looks like a witch, but she's not allowed to walk on my side of the street anymore because we live on top of the bar. And the one day she like crapped in the alleyway, so they didn't let her on the other side. I know I'm like getting off topic, but they didn't let her like anywhere near the bar because she took a dump in the alleyway. I'm getting like off topic, but so yeah, she's like pretty creepy.
Yeah. Pretty strange lady.
Yeah, she could be a skinwalker.
Maybe.
I always see her just like walking around random places at like the middle of the night sometimes. So I mean, like, she could be.
Yeah.
So this one, I would say, possibly correlates with her. I feel bad. She could just be like some innocent old lady that's got like problems.
Yeah.
But I could just be like saying that she's a skinwalker. But
good content.
it could correlate with her possibly. So me, and both of my brother-in-laws, we were standing outside. This was in 2020. So we were standing outside, and there's just weird stuff going on. You know, it's just like one of those weird vibes that you get every once in a while. And we see something like standing in the darkness, kind of like almost like a figure of like a human. And we're like thinking it's like the old lady just like going on a walk, but it's like standing like in someone's like driveway, like right next to their house, like very dark. And I don't know, it's like creepy, but we didn't really think anything of it. We were like, it's probably not the old lady, it's probably just like a shadow. And I look away, and the only one that's looking over there is my younger brother-in-law. He was about like 11 at this time. His name's Nolan. He was like the only one that was looking over there. And me and my other brother, we hear like this like slappy bare feet running noise, like a like a, I don't know, I'm not gonna try to demonstrate it again.
Clapping of meat or something.
Yeah, like a clapping of meat against like the road. And it was like really fast, and I just like take one quick glimpse and I see something running. I'm not like paying attention to it. It could be crackheads, you know, where I live, you never know. Could be a crackhead running or just skinwalker, but
crackhead activity.
Yeah, just like running. And I seen like one glimpse of it, and we go charging inside. It's like terrifying us. And yeah, but Nolan, he says he like distinctly seen what it was. He said it was like a scary humanoid skinwalker thing. It's like, I don't know, it's like a scary like humanoid thing. And yeah, that's about where it ends. And we were like really creeped out with that. Then this next one was around January of this year. I don't know if it was like really skinwalker-ish, but it was just like scary, creepy kind of thing. It didn't like make us go like screaming or anything, but there was me and my brother-in-law were outside playing catch, and this person in this like really big giant like orange jacket walks by, and like their whole like face is just like darked out. You don't see any of their body. They like wave at us with, like, you can't see their hand. It looks like they're like grabbing the inside of their jacket, so you can't see their hand. It could just be like someone going on a walk and like waving. But it was just like, I don't know, it was like weird because you couldn't like see their face, and they're just like walking, and they walk around the corner and just like disappear, and that's about it.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that, and could be something weird, or just could be some friendly person that you're gonna see their face, because it's like out. Yeah.
So you're gonna tell me the one story, like, did this happen recently?
And now the one that's like more recent, about a month ago. This one is the one that like seriously scared me. So me and my brother-in-law, once again, we're playing catch outside. We always play catch with the football. So we're playing catch. We throw the ball. It bounces into my neighbor's yard. So we just go over there. When it bounces, it hits the ground, goes over the fence. We don't hear it land. So we go over there. We're looking all over the place for this football. Found it nowhere. Like, literally nowhere. We're looking all over his yard. I'm getting nervous because I feel like he's going to think we're, like, breaking into his house. We're looking all over the place. Can't find the football anywhere. We have not seen that football ever again. And it's just disappeared. So we grab another football, we keep playing catch, and this time, it's like an inaccurate throw that I throw. It hits the ground, bounces into the alleyway of the bar. Oh yeah, by the way, I live like right above a bar, so it bounces into the alleyway of the bar. My brother-in-law, Nolan, he's like, I don't want to go over there, there's spiders in the alley. So I go over there. Before I walk over there, we hear this like weird like clicking noise, kind of like Predator from the Predator movies.
Or like clicker from The Last of Us.
Yeah, like a clicker from The Last of Us. And Nolan, he's like, do you want to go upstairs? And I'm like, no, it's probably just like a bird or something. And then I go into the alleyway to get the ball, and I don't grab the ball because we hear the same noise, but just like 10 times louder. It feels like it's getting closer, and that same like slappy meat running noise that I heard the last time. And I was just terrified, dude. We were both just like so scared. We go charging up the stairs, stumbling over each other. This thing's like, I don't know, neither of us seen it. Yeah, we just go charging up the stairs, go inside, lock the door, like freaking out, because like I usually don't get like super scared in those situations, but like it like scared me because like I never heard the noise before, and I was like looking up things that could possibly make the noise. I didn't find anything besides a shoebill something, like this big giant like 6 foot tall bird that's from like Africa, and there's like no chance that that's in like Ohio. So
right. Well, in Cleveland.
Yeah. Unless it like got out to the zoo, because we live close to the zoo, but I don't know. But it's scary. We go charging upstairs, and a couple minutes later we go outside and go next door to my sister. She lives like right next door, and they have a camera set up, so we asked for the footage to see if they caught it on camera. The footage was just like, it wasn't there. Like you would have think it would caught, because it's like motion and like sound activated, so you think it would have caught it, but it didn't. So I don't know, it was kind of weird too.
Yeah, that sucks.
And when we got outside, there was like this weird like red pukey stuff. Ooh. Which, I mean, it could have just been someone from the bar like puking, and even the noise and like running noise could have been some crackhead from the bar like chilling in my neighbor's yard for whatever reason, like making weird noises and like running at us or something. Yeah, that's about it.
Pretty much it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
could be Skinwalker, couldn't be Skinwalker, could just be like, you know, basic crackhead activities.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially over in like Cleveland, because you never know what you're gonna see in Cleveland.
Yeah.
So that concludes the final episode of the Skinwalker series. Now we know that this is a little bit of a longer episode, so like I mentioned, I'll put at the beginning of the video like where the pieces and parts of the episode are. Like I'll put one for Skinwalker Ranch, and then one for our story, and then we can do like one for the article as well. Yeah, don't forget to subscribe if you aren't subscribed, and if you are subscribed, please like and comment and let us know how we did on this video. Now it's pretty exciting for us because this is our first time finishing a series. And so the reason why this episode is really long is because we wanted to tie up this whole series and move on to like our next cryptid, which we haven't decided on what it will be next, but we'll let you know. If you follow us on any of our social medias, we'll keep you updated. And if you aren't, then you'll just see like whenever we post our next video.
Okay, make sure to comment down below what we should talk about next, what cryptids and stuff, and if you give us good recommendations of what cryptids we should talk about next. If you can, leave stories in the comments, or DM us on like TikTok, or does YouTube still have like messages? I don't think they do.
I'm not sure, but you can just like leave it down in the comments. We'll see it. We always check it.
Yeah, but make sure to let us know any cryptids you want to hear us talk about, any stories you may have, and yeah, that's all. Make sure to like and subscribe, hit the bell notification, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.
All right, bye.